D. Maybe I just say the first letter of everybody's thing so you can have your privacy. You know, part of this group, the Telegram group, is not so I expose you on YouTube by saying your names. It's so that we can verify people's ID. D. Can strong emotional reactions be leveraged somehow to access awakening or glimpses? Hey D, thank you so much for your question. That's a nice idea, eh? Because then that puts purpose on suffering. So it's like, okay, I'm going to suffer these things. I'm going to have immense emotional discomfort in these things. And if I accept them and surrender to them, then they are going to accelerate awakening or glimpses. So that's a really nice idea for the mind because it puts purpose on your suffering. I liked that idea when I got into this subject, that I could use my suffering to go deeper into myself. So notice that that's a story, and notice that there's an element of you that most probably likes that because it's positive thinking. And that's not a bad thing, but it's just noticing that it is a story, and what's being pointed to is without any story, is what's here without any story. When we have emotions, we identify with emotions and we seek to avoid the emotions. So say you're experiencing fear or you're experiencing insecurity. There is a belief that it's my insecurity, and there's a belief that deep down, that fear is going to kill you or take away your essence. I know that sounds ridiculous, but there is a fear. When you identify with it, there is a fear that it's going to kill you, the deepest level. So then what happens in the mind, in the person, when you lose connection with who you truly are and identify with the person and the person's emotion, then the emotion becomes too big and has too much importance. So then you seek to avoid the emotion. And that means creating lots of stories in order to try to avoid it. So for example, if you have a fight with your partner, maybe there's a feeling of really out of controlness and like real anger towards them. And there might be truth, some forms of truth in what the anger is saying. So maybe you had a fight because your partner never remembers to clean her shoes before she comes into the house and always makes dirt, and then you always have to clean it up. Which, if your partner was more thoughtful and loved you more, this might be a story you say, then she wouldn't do that. So then there might be like this great hatred and anger, and then it might get connected to hatred and anger from childhood. So then there might be this like immense story that you have that she doesn't love you just from walking dirt in the house repetitively. She doesn't love you, she doesn't want to be in a relationship with you, she's against you, she's passive aggressive, all these things, which they maybe have some truth in them in some world, but these stories are being elongated not to find out any truth, but to exacerbate and avoid the initial feeling. I know that sounds crazy, but if you're lost in all this fog of thought, then you're actually avoiding the initial feeling that maybe is like feeling out of control or feeling abandoned. So then you're in this big story, which is actually stopping you feeling the core roots of the fear and the feeling that you're going to die and the abandonment. And you're lost in like this rage and this story and all these thoughts and all these negative emotions, these negative thoughts in the head, which are better to the mind and to the person than feeling the core. Because if you felt the core of the emotions, really felt the core of the emotions, then there would be a death, because the emotions don't belong to you and the emotions aren't who you are. I'll explain it again in a different way because that might be really confusing, so I'll explain it in another way. With work, let's do it with money. So your boss gives you a disciplinary, and then there is immense fear that arises, and underneath that there is the fear that you're going to die, because to you, you are the person that is employed by the boss, and if you lose your job, then it means that something terrible and catastrophic is going to happen. And emotionally, it connects you to like a fear of dying, like a fear of being out of control. And the fear of dying and the fear of abandonment are kind of the base of the ego, the base of the illusory mind. And they're like the base of the identification. Like as soon as identification comes, they're like the base feelings. So then what happens is, rather than feeling those feelings and staying present to those feelings, the fear of death really, there is a complicated growth into a massive elongated story that your boss is an asshole, that he's done something wrong, that society is corrupt, why do we have to work, why do we have to have so many things, society's unfair, this is slavery, political, if the government was more left or right, or if I lived in a different country, or why didn't I train in a different job, or I can't work for people, I need to become self-employed. So you go into a mass story to avoid feeling the feeling of going to die. Because in the initial feeling of it, the very initial feeling of any feeling, there is nobody that has feeling. There is feeling that belongs to everything. So there is this seeking, this avoidance to go into time and to go into a story about the feelings, because if you actually really felt your feelings, you would die. Because to really feel your feelings, there is nobody there that feels feelings, there is just feeling. And that is innately scary to the person. It's the same with positive feelings, it's the same with pain as well. If you really felt pain, you would die. If you really felt emotion, you would die. But it's actually the fear of death which keeps us in the narration of you, in this horizontal line of you. So it's not that feeling the emotions can free you or give you glimpses, because that's all up in this mental horizontal story of you. But when you really feel feelings, or when you really experience anything truly for what it is, rather than through a mental separation of me having a feeling, of me having pain, of me in relationship to you, when there is a complete intimacy with everything that's being experienced, then you die. There is nobody. The growth of this mental conceptualization was actually there in the beginning to try and help you and save you from something. But it created a false world that isn't true. And people just stay in their lifetimes, and it justifies things to them. And they keep repeating the story. This is one of the reasons why I think that sometimes people struggle being in intimate relationships, is because you can see people's illusions again and again and again. And it kind of reflects back to you your illusions. Like, they're crazy. They keep doing the same thing. They keep walking out the door and falling in this black hole. Every day I say to them, don't fall in the black hole. And they do it again and again. Yeah. I don't know how clear that was. I try my best. Oh, that's sweet. Dee says that was astounding. Thank you. Do I know who you are, Dee? You don't have to say your name, but sometimes it's nice for me to know. If I don't know who you are, then don't put a name. Oh, nice. Have we met before? I'd recognize your name. You don't know me. Okay. Oh, nice. Yeah, thanks for your question. So, when a feeling happens, it's not about you feeling the feeling, it's an absolute surrender to the feeling. Because you feeling a feeling is a story again. So it's a surrender to the feeling. So right now, you can use your personal awareness in a way to do this exercise, but then it's also realizing that, or letting that go at some point, the personal awareness. So putting your attention, your personal awareness into the body and really allowing feelings, but noticing there's still personal awareness there. There is somebody that's watching the feelings, And eventually it's a complete merging into the feelings. So there's nothing separate from the feelings. But that's a great practice to settle the person down and to, I suppose in a way, be more open to this message. You know, when person's really deeply lost in stories, you know, how can we ever communicate about non-duality? Yeah, thank you, Dee, so much for your question. I really appreciate it, and yeah, really lovely meeting you here. Like, really lovely. And when I say that, I mean meeting you here in presence.